God says today, I invite you to enter into my stillness. The noise and color of ordinary life is clamoring for your attention in every direction surrounding you. It is time to go inside. Your attention should be directed toward the altar that is located within you, where the incense of intercession is rising to my throne. This inner man of yours is a miniature version of my domain. Your own being is the dwelling place of the glory and the manifestation of my light. The adversary and, at times, the routines of everyday life work together to distract you from my presence. Nonetheless, I tell you to run to the rock that you have become bored with. You are not the only one. In the same way that a shield protects you, I am your defense and I am surrounding you with favor. Your spiritual life that you live before my throne will be the determining factor in the subsequent events that take place in your external circumstances. It is through this process that my lordship within becomes manifest as my glory outside, and change occurs. The Father has spoken to you today and told you that failure is not your lot. Since I am not a person who is prone to failure, I have not incorporated the possibility of failure into the plan that I have devised for your life. You do not count as a failure. You will not be doomed to fail or to come to nothing in the future. It is important that you resist the desire to evaluate the conditions of your life before the process that I am guiding you through reaches its natural end. One thing to keep in mind when you are feeling frustrated and like everything is hopeless is that there is always another day. It is important that you keep in mind that I am always working up to your advantage. You may count on me to always be working hard and willing to deliver you the fulfillment of your deepest heart's desire and your greatest dream. This is exactly how I am. That is the way that I feel about you. As long as you continue to place your trust in me and ground your sense of identity in the things that I say about you, you will never feel uncomfortable or ashamed. To refresh your memory, I have provided you with a number of dreams and visions in the past. You should bring all of the initiatives and goals that you have put on hold and put them in front of you and prioritize them. You should look to me with anticipation. I am able to come up with ways and means to accomplish things in your life. The fact that you have been trying to impose your own vision of how I am going to get things done is a contribution to the frustration that you have been experiencing. My sovereignty has been curtailed in the sense that I have promised you a result. Nevertheless, I have retained my sovereignty with regard to the manner in which I implement your goal and vision. Your time is not worth wasting by making suggestions to me or insisting that I answer your request in a specific manner. The way you envision me responding is merely an illustration of the things that I will not do. What I think is not the same as what you think. When you listen to my heart and remain faithful even when things do not make sense, you will see the suffering of your soul and be satisfied. My ways are not your ways, but as you listen to my heart, you will see the suffering of your soul. Currently, Psalm 44, constantly in opposition to the promise that God made. Can you recall a time when God made a promise to you in His Word but failed to fulfill it? Each and every one of us is able to recognize in our own life circumstances that are in direct opposition to the unambiguous promise found in the Bible. What kind of a response are we going to give? Is it possible that we are perverting the Bible by implying that God did not mean what He said? Or, do we openly and honestly convey our grievances to God, knowing, as the author of this psalm does, that God will always be true to His people, even when we go through extended times of personal suffering, which will finally be alleviated by His hand? I beg you, my lover, to depart. I am the one who adores your very being. I, the groom, am the one who is aching to be with the bride. Your soul is the one to which I have a solemn commitment. Both in your physical form and in your whole being, you are my bride. Due to the fact that you are connected to the corporate Christ, which is my body here on earth, you are my bride. I will not permit the adversary to get a hold of you or to do you any kind of harm in any manner. I will not permit the events that occur in your life to contaminate you or to rob you of the joy that you deserve. In the cleft of the rock that I am, there is a spot where you can hide until the storms have passed. This place is located right here alongside me. It is important to remember that even if 1,000 falls at your right hand and 10,000 falls at your left, you will still be standing. My glory will be seen in the territory that you possess. When you make a fresh and new commitment to me today, you will not be denied, and you will not be disappointed in any way. You will be given complete and total acceptance. At this same moment, Psalm 43, the process of discovering the altar that lies within. This chapter focuses on David's response to the devastating news that he received from a close friend. Jonathan, Saul's son, advises David to flee for his safety because the king has made up his mind to remove him from the kingdom. The response that David chose to take was to pray to God and seek his justice. David had faith in the judgment that God would make. David did not consider the act of God's judgment to be something that should be avoided. It is in the midst of his predicament that he discovers the altar of God. For us, the altar is not located in a dome or a structure, but rather within the very core of our humanity. KJV for Psalm 43 verses 1-5, 1 Judge me, O God, and plead my cause against a nation that is not righteous. Save me from the guy who is dishonest and unfair. 2 Because you are the God who gives me strength, I do not understand why you are rejecting me. The persecution of the enemy is the reason I am in grief. Why am I doing this? 3 I pray that you would send forth your light and your truth. Let them guide me, let them bring me to your sacred hill and to your tabernacles. For at that time, I will go to the altar of God, to God, my greatest joy. Yes, I will praise thee, O God, my God, while I am playing the harp. I ask you, O my soul, why are you being thrown down? What is it that is making you feel uneasy within me? Have faith in God, for I will thank him in the future, for he is the source of my strength and the provider of my God. A psalm that does not have a specific title is this particular psalm. It is presumed that David wrote it under the influence of a significant personal problem at the time. According to the Septuagint Bible, which is a collection of Old Testament scripture that was written before the time of Jesus, the context of this chapter is interpreted as David's reaction to the news that Saul's son Jonathan had informed him that the king intended to kill him. Do you remember ever receiving a threat from your adversary that was delivered by a friend? The love that Jonathan had for David was profound, and he wanted David to be aware of the degree of danger that he was facing at that very moment. David cries out to God and expresses his sorrow at the fact that the entire country of Israel, which was led by Saul, appeared to be united against him. In light of the magnitude of the issue that is in front of him, he is at a loss for what to do and feels as though there is no path forward. Before, while you were in the middle of a difficulty, have you ever felt overwhelmed? Have you ever been in a situation where you were absolutely out of your depth, and the only hope you have is that God will save you in an unusual way? If so, are you currently facing such circumstances? This was the predicament that David found himself in, and as was his pattern, he prayed to God for assistance in the matter. Both you and I can gain insight from David's conduct when he was under pressure. Although God does not show any regard for individuals, he does show respect for faith. The same outcomes will occur if we apply the same principles to our faith in the face of opposition as David did to his faith in the face of opposition. The very first thing that David did, as we can see in verse 1, was to seek the judgment of God. And he cries out to the Father, saying, "Judge me, O God." In light of the fact that David's adversaries believed that he was already being judged by God, this is an odd occurrence. They were under the impression that the persecution they applied to David was a component of the punishment that was associated with what they perceived to be God's judgment against him. There are times when we feel as though we are attempting to avoid God's judgment while we are in a difficult situation. There is never a time when you should be afraid of the judgment of God. God is a judge who is fair. Whenever I was in a difficult circumstance, I would often say to the Lord during my time of prayer, I appeal to the throne. On occasion, two Christians will have a disagreement, and one of them will have the courage to turn the other over to the devil for the destruction of their flesh but the saving of their soul. In the course of my experience, I have come across this situation more than once. Don't give me over to the devil, is the remark that I constantly give people. For what reason would I be concerned about the team that is losing? I would rather defer to God since I believe that He is more powerful than I am. This is an attempt to seek the judgment and justice of God. God is a just God. Period. When God decides what is going on in your life, you should never have any reason to doubt the outcome that He has in store for you. The difference between David's emotional reaction and his heart reaction to his situation is made clear in verse 2, which is where we find the divide. In spite of the fact that he is resolute in his heart to put his faith in God, he is experiencing a profound sense of disconnection from God and his emotional makeup. By expressing his emotions, he is not engaging in a sinful act. David's prayer life was marked by a number of redeeming qualities, one of which was his honesty and candor. In spite of the fact that David has a strong sense of separation from God, he continues to insist that God is the God of his strength. You may not have a strong feeling. During times of difficulty, you might not get the impression that God is close to you. Belief is not much related to emotions in any way. There are moments when the faith that you have in your heart is in direct contrast to the emotional response that you are experiencing at the moment. This does not imply that you are acting in a hypocritical manner. When David is confronted with the difficulty of his emotional state, he does not let it cause him to abandon his trust in God. On the contrary, he transforms it into a prayer and thrusts himself into the presence of God in order to receive answers and solace. In the 3rd verse, David makes a request to the Father, asking him to shine light on his position. For us, when we talk about light and truth, we are aware that God Himself is our light, and that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life that we live by on a daily basis. It is always the case that you are walking toward God when you are walking in light and truth. You are never traveling away from Him. Take note of the fact that David makes a request to the Father's tabernacles to bring him in. For us, the tabernacle is not the same as the temple that Solomon built or the tabernacle that Moses built. In addition, it is not the cathedral or the church house proper. Instead of looking to other people for help when we are in a difficult situation, we go to God for help. According to Philippians 4 verse 19, God will provide for all of your needs in accordance with His honor and wealth. As stated in the book of Colossians 1 verses 26 and 27, the glory is in you. Therefore, the leading of God that David is referring to is an inward leading that leads to empowerment and deliverance flowing out from us into the circumstances of our lives in order to bring about victory and breakthrough. When David enters the tabernacle, he immediately makes his way to the altar of God, as specified in verse 4. To David, the altar of God was one of two things. First, it was a place where animals were killed as a form of atonement for sin. Second, it was a place where incense was offered up as a form of prayer in front of the Holy of Holies. It is quite likely that David never had the opportunity to see the altar of incense in the holy place during his lifetime. This was because it was forbidden for him to do so. However, the priests were able to offer incense for him and for the people alike. For both of us, what does the picture of the altar represent? Altars play a very little role in the culture of contemporary churches. A significant portion of the altars have been replaced in order to create additional space for the stage, which is where shows are offered to the adoring public. When we do anything at all with sincere searchers, we take them back into a private chamber that is hidden from view. This is done so that we do not disrupt the activities that are taking place in the main sanctuary by the use of a public altar. During the time of the Great Awakening, the concept of the altar in our recent history was initially conceived as a mourner's bench or an inquirer's bench. Under the leadership of individuals such as George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards, the Great Awakening shifted the focus away from salvation as a subject that was primarily concerned with institutions and instead made it a personal, living, and emotional experience. There was more to coming to Christ than simply being a member of the church or being christened as a child. Converting one's life to Christ was now a profoundly emotional experience as well as a spiritual commitment that resulted in the entire person's life being transformed and moving in a new path. In order to facilitate this transaction between a soul that was seeking and the Father, the altar and the altar call served as the means or instrumentality that made it possible. For those of us living in this day and age, the altar may not be fashionable in our churches, yet, you do possess an altar within the tabernacle of your own human emotion. Within you is the altar where Jesus was offered up before the foundation of the world. You are the temple of God, and within you is the altar. There is a place called the altar of prayer, where your prayers are presented to God in the form of fragrant incense. The altar of God that is located within you should not be neglected. In the same way that David did when he was in difficulties, whenever you find yourself in a difficult situation, you should seek the face of God before his altar in your own human heart. David poses the difficult question to himself once more in verse 5, which reads, "Why are you cast down, O my soul?" This psalm is a representation of David's human response to his relationship with God, and it gives the impression that David is monitoring his own human response. During the time that David is repairing and traveling to the altar of God, he becomes aware that his soul is tormented. His spirit is in a better place at this moment. He is unable to spend time in the presence of God since his soul is preoccupied with other things. David, who is seething with rage in his spirit, turns around and reprimands his soul, effectively challenging his soul with the question, "What is your problem? Could you not see that I am attempting to pray?" Let us take a cue from the example. When you are under a lot of pressure, you should not let your spirituality determine what happens next. This does not mean that you should give in to your soul's desires like a toddler of 2 years old simply because it does not believe that pursuing God is in any way beneficial. Acquire the ability to exercise control over your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and then proceed to seek the kingdom. David comes to a conclusion, and the scene in which he is remonstrating with his soul, much like a parent might reprimand a little kid, comes to an end. To have faith in God is what he tells himself. In spite of the fact that he is experiencing a great deal of emotional distress, he assures his soul that he will ultimately thank him. Make sure that your reaction to God is not determined by your soul. Do not allow your spirit to take the praises that you have for God out of your tongue. This is a field of study that the majority of us are completely ignorant of. Be able to communicate with yourself. Master the art of self-reflection by imitation of David. Make a conscious decision to prevent your soul from diverting your attention away from the altar that is located within your own heart, where God responds to you with fire and saves you from all of your problems. This day, the Father instructs us to enter into the most significant aspects of my kingdom. For you, my love is even more profound. My love for you is unrivaled by the failures you have committed. Although you have a tendency towards sin, my love for you is greater than that. My love is more powerful. Not only is my love for you intense, but my envy for you is so strong that it surpasses even Satan's hatred. Even if all of the animosity and malice that is directed toward you were to be brought up in a single concentrated stew of spite, my love would still be greater. Love is more powerful than judgment in my eyes. According to the Father, my love is greater, therefore, let yourself to enter into and walk in my greater love today. Permit yourself to be the one who is loved. Give yourself permission to be yourself and remember that you are the one for whom the only born was sacrificed on the cross. Permit yourself to have the perception that you are someone who, for the purpose of love, even the grave would not be able to stop me from coming to you. It is your right to be loved and cherished. You have pondered and pondered the possibility of what your role in my kingdom might be going to be. First, beyond all other ideas and concepts, it is your most important mission to simply be liked. Without first gaining an awareness of my love, there is nothing else that can be undertaken. If you do not first embrace, comprehend, and immerse yourselves in the love that I have for you, then every religious effort and every gigantic exertion is utterly without merit. You have my love. I came here because I am in love. What keeps me here is love. Love is how I live my life and what I do. Recognize and accept that love. To remove from your mind any and all illegitimate and false images of me that are in opposition to love, tear them away and extract them. It is not that I am looking for occasions to pass judgment on you, rather, I am looking for reasons to love you. Could you possibly accept that love? You are accepting me when you let love into your life. Feel the joy of my affection. Bask in the love that I have for you. Relax and take pleasure in my love today and every day until there are no more days and just eternity left, and my love will continue to be with you. Keep your attention fixed on your vocation, the Father advises to you today. Make sure that your election and calling are secure. Prepare your own salvation by trembling and working out your own salvation. You should avoid making the same error that Peter did. Whenever I asked him, "Do you love me?" he writhed in pain. He turned his attention to John and screamed, "What is this man going to do?" No matter what other people do, nobody cares. You are not responsible for it, even though other people seem to be able to go about their business without any accountability. I have been trying to mold and shape you into my image ever since you dedicated your life to me. I have taken you at your word and I have been working to form and shape you. There is a significant amount of strain in your life that you have been trying to escape, yet it has not been the pressure of the enemy, rather, it has been my hand that has turned you into the potter. Is it possible for the item that was produced to ask the thing that made it, "Why have you made me in this manner?" Beloved, I am the potter, and you are the ground-up material. When you take a look around, you will see the shattered, painted, and garish pieces of vessels that are refusing to be used. Because of the overwhelming demand, they made the decision to remove themselves from the potter's wheel. They adorned themselves with inflated and gilded perceptions of their own magnificence. In point of fact, such individuals have been marginalized as a result of their own self-talk. The only thing that will change for them is for them to get back on the potter's wheel and enable me to finish what I started in them. They preen themselves like spiritual peacocks and make comments about how kingdom-minded they are. Be adaptable, my dearly cherished. The path that you follow is familiar to me. My hand is the one that is sculpting and molding you. The work will be completed at some point. Have faith in me. Continuing to be so obedient to me will bring you to the point where you are fully mature in me. Do not give in to feelings of self-pity, the Father advises us today. It is time to remove oneself from the gathering of people who are preoccupied with themselves. The fallen condition is characterized by feelings of self-pity and self-absorption of the individual. The pursuit of my kingdom and the anticipation of my blessing are not about indulging in self-indulgence or having narcissistic illusions about who you are in my kingdom. Refuse to believe the lies that the adversary tells you when he is attempting to entice you to love yourself, says the Father. Take a look at the reflection of my saying. A transparent and honest view of yourself is required. Learning what it means to be accountable for your own actions and character is something you should do. You are completely capable of reaching that degree of maturity, despite the fact that other people may have a different opinion of you. According to the Father, chastisement is a privilege that is reserved for sons, and I also refer to you as my loving son and my beloved daughter. The utterance of Abba, Father, is made possible by my Spirit within you. In every situation, do you acknowledge me as your Father? Make it your goal to convince yourself that I am more than a benefactor and more than a remote, selfless entity who responds to the cries of your heart. Yes, I am a father. It was primarily for the goal of showing to you who I am in your life that I came up with the idea of fatherhood. When it comes to their children's life, fathers are influential figures who shape them. Please allow me to shape you. Maintain a corrective attitude. Be a vessel that will yield. Be aware of what it means to not only beg for forgiveness but also to repent and make changes in the aspects of your life and your personhood that you are aware of as being lacking and that cause my heart to be grieved. For the reason that I love you and consider you to be the pupil of my eye, I will be right there to bestow upon you my favor that enables you to succeed. Today, the Father encourages us to maintain a focus on others. Be careful not to be caught up in the trap of self-centeredness. The adversary wants you to focus solely on your predicament, your hardships, and your problems. He wants you to ignore everything else. It is important to be aware of the fact that putting the kingdom first requires you to shift your focus from your own personal problems and requirements to the requirements of other people. Do not allow yourself to be sidetracked by the distraction of the immediate or the urgent. Do you have the ability to shift your focus from your personal requirements to the desires of other people? If there is nothing else you can do, the Father adds, you can pray, intercede, and cry out to me. This is not only for your own real needs, but also for what is going on in the lives of others who are close to you. Do not divert your attention away from the harvest. There were occasions and circumstances that required every disciple, every apostle, and every saint who was included in the story of the New Testament to focus solely on their own needs, rather than considering the requirements of others. With their willingness to work in my crop, they purchased a godly inheritance for themselves, despite the fact that there were moments when their personal requirements were so enormous that they were even all-consuming. Today is the day to become a servant son. You should imagine that you are a handmaiden of my throne. Make it a point to avoid assigning to yourself callings that are not directly related to the activities that you are currently engaged in. There is a type of deceit that occurs when you imagine that you are walking in a call without truly sacrificing yourself for the sake of doing so. Maintain a state of availability. You should pour out your life like an offering of a drink. I want you to know that I am working in your circumstance as you continue to pursue the kingdom with absolute determination. Today, the Father instructs us to enter into my eternal presence. On this day, I free you from the authority that time has over you. There will be no more instances in which you find yourself stating things like, I don't have time, or there is not enough time in my day. That is not your share of the pie. It follows that you are not in a hurry since I am not in a hurry. I made time and the passage of time to be your servant, not your master. You are not hurried, says the Father. I created time and the passage of time. Time is not an undesirable consequence that resulted from Adam's situation of being fallen. Time is a measurement of the span of time that separates glory and glory in your life. It was made by my hand. Reeling from one stressful day to the next is not the purpose of your life when you are living it. Schedules, phone calls, and missed appointments are not the only things that make up your existence. It is not possible to quantify the length of your life in terms of days, minutes, hours, or seconds. When you find yourself in need of additional time, my dearest, I will simply extend eternity and include into your life each and every day and minute that is required to complete the task at hand. Are you in need of further time? The Father asks. I thus pronounce that you are liberated from the oppression of time on this day. Because I am a jealous God, time will not govern you because it is my part to be your Lord. I will not let time rule over you. I will take time and bend it to your will, and I will cause it to be lengthened, enlarged, and prolonged so that the days you spend in this life will be days of blessing rather than days of misery. In the same way that your days are, so will your strength be. On this day, I establish you as a master of time. Time was created by me, and you are the one who rules and reigns beside me. For this reason, because I am the master of time, you will have the ability to govern over time and experience the fullness of days and the length of life. You will progress from one level of faith to the next. Every day, you will move from one level of glory to the next. Everything that you come into contact with will be preserved forever by the glory that I have within you. All of the things that were missing have been included now. Now that you have a strong handle on something that appeared to be out of your reach, you should relax, have faith, and move forward since this is where things start to get easier. There is no power in heaven and earth that can put you outside of my plan for your life, the Father says today. There is no power that can do that. The sequence in which your days are organized is not arbitrary and devoid of any significance. The things that will happen in your life and the things that will happen in the future are written in my book, and just as I have planned, they will come to pass. The one and only thing that can deviate from my flawless arrangement is the degree to which you have faith and trust in the person that I have shown myself to be in your eyes. Who exactly is it that you claim I am? The Father asks again. What you think is a much more important factor in determining your future than the decisions made by other people, the specifics of your situation, or the randomness of your birth. The Father encourages us to make this day a turning point from which we might turn to deep trust. Allow this day to be the day that you recognize with every fiber of your being that my agenda is to bring heaven to earth into your life and the experiences that you have. You are not going to be excluded. A blessing will be bestowed upon you. The inheritance, as well as the complete redemption of the purchased ownership that Calvary made available to you 2,000 years ago, will be distributed to you. Do not be terminated. Neither should you be concerned about the things, situations, and circumstances that appear to contradict what I have stated, neither should you be concerned about them. Things are subject to change. The circumstances are always shifting. Until the end of time, my vow will stand, and you will not be denied.